Welcome to the Murfreesboro City Council. This is it says regular meeting agenda, but this is our special meeting that's going to be on budget, our 2024-2025 budget. If you'll bow with me, and then we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, we come to you today for guidance. We come to you today for wisdom. Lord, as we make decisions for this city, Lord, give us the wisdom to make those decisions that are right for our entire community. Lord, we lift up the Sullivan family. We lift up, there are some things that you can't put words to. And all we can say is that your will be done, and that we pray for their family. Lord, that you help ease their loss. Lord, I pray for the employees and the residents in this city, that you bless them, Lord, and be with them. We say all these things in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will start our fiscal year 25 budget discussions, and Erin, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll present the city's budget first, and then we'll have city schools, water resources, and stormwater that will follow afterwards. Okay, so get my presentation pulled up here. All right. So today's review will include snapshots of key revenues and expenses with a comparison to this year and next year's proposed budget. Before we dig into the details, I just wanted to show a little bit of highlights there. So the left side of the screen shows the highlights. The right side shows our use of fund balance. On the highlights, revenues total $280 million, while expenses are budgeted at $364 million. So we have $84 million more in expenses than budgeted revenues. Now, the recurring operating revenues and expenses are projected at a little over $250 million, with operating revenues actually higher by about $1 million or $1.1 million, mainly because interest revenues are up right now, and we anticipate that to continue next year. With that said, next year's budget uses $83 million of restricted and assigned fund balance, including $41 million for MED projects or MED funded projects, and $28 million for CIP items funded from general fund. We're also including the one-time use of unassigned fund balance for ongoing legal expenses, for lawsuits that are continuing, and we anticipate to continue into next year. So before I go into the major revenues, are there any questions on how we're using these fund balances? So starting with major revenue assumptions, we're budgeting close to $72 million for property tax next year. This is a little under 3% in growth over this year's projection, and does not include a property tax rate increase for next year. As you know, local sales tax has been up and down over the past 18 months. We're projecting this tax to come in about 1.5% to 2% over our budget, and we're budgeting an additional 1.5% increase next year. And this makes this our largest budgeted revenue source at just over $72 million. State sales tax is reflecting similar results as local, but on a lower scale. We're budgeting a 1% growth in this revenue next year, with a total budget of a little under $19 million. This is our second year to budget the Community Investment Trust. This year's MTE payment will distribute $5 million to road projects and $2 million to general fund, with the remaining $10.3 million going into the trust. In addition, we have a little over $2 million coming back from the trust as part of that required annual distribution. The funds distributed back to general fund, along with the $2 million from the original MTE payment, are being used for operating uses next year. As part of the solid waste fee recovery model that Mr. Gore has presented to council the last couple of years, we've included the fee increase of $2 for residential and $5 for most of our commercial customers. Council approved this year's fee increase back in April, and we are still showing about $3.8 million in costs covered by general fund next year for solid waste. So this is just a look at our other revenues. Local taxes and state shared revenues are staying relatively flat. You'll see in the middle of the screen there that charges for services have decreased compared to the FY24 budget. This is mainly due to the VA canceling their fire service contract with the city, which had an impact of about $1.3 million in revenues. The other revenues category is showing increases next year, and that's due to higher interest revenues. We're expecting interest to jump about 30% compared to where we stand right now in FY24, and it's going up about $3 million compared to the FY24 budget. That is being used for operating purposes next year, but that is a vulnerable revenue source just depending on market conditions and how those change. Before I move into expenditures, are there any questions about any of those revenue items? Okay, y'all should have a copy of the supplemental requests on your desk. The large sheet shows all of the requests in one place, and then we also have a sheet that breaks out positions and just the non-position requests on the two smaller sheets. We're just going to review these at a high level, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. So here's a look at total expenditures by division. We put a big emphasis on public safety again this year. You can see here that police and fire make up 25% of the overall general fund budget. And actually, when we take out the one-time spending for MED proceeds and the CIP projects paid for out of general fund, that number jumps up to 34% of the operating budget. Public infrastructure makes up 22% this year, and that includes Town Creek and general fund and other grant-funded projects, as well as engineering and transportation-related expenses. This year, we're going to see $4.5 million roll off of old debt service in next year's budget, but we also anticipate borrowing for the 24 CIP that council approved last fall, which would have a net impact of increasing next year's budget by $1.5 million. So we have included that in next year's budget, and that makes debt service come out to 12% of our overall city budget or 18% of the operating budget. So looking at our supplemental requests, the FY25 supplementals total $8.2 million. This is a very heavy personnel budget this year. Pay raises, new positions, and position adjustments make up 82% of the supplemental requests. Public safety positions account for 24% of the overall requests and include 15 new certified officers. So that includes 9 police officers, 4 detectives, 1 sergeant, and 1 captain. There are also 2 fire inspectors included in the budget, along with our radio systems manager that will support both police and fire, an assistant public information officer for public safety, and an emergency communications supervisor position is being added as well. Other public safety supplementals make up 6% of the requests and include mainly technology and equipment needs. So here's where we stand with payroll-related increases. We have a 2.5% pay raise and 1.5% COLA built into next year's budget at a combined cost of $3.4 million. We have 40 new positions, that's including 22 from public safety, as well as promotions, reclasses, and just other miscellaneous personnel adjustments. Those are included at a combined $3.1 million. And then we budgeted a small medical premium increase again for next year, along with our first dental premium increase in several years. I'm not sure when the last time we raised dental honestly is. So looking at our medical premiums, the chart on the top will show you how those premiums are increasing. We're budgeting to increase anywhere between 96 cents and $4.30 per pay period. Dental is budgeted to increase between 48 cents and $1.34 per pay period. So you can look at the chart on the bottom. That looks at our lowest classification on our pay plan and projects out the various medical and dental scenarios. And you can see that regardless of these premium increases, our employees' paychecks will still go up with the COLA and pay raises.
Is it gonna go up enough to cover this?
Yes, that's what I was saying. You can see on that bottom chart where it shows the pay period increase, it'll still go up.
May I go back to employees,
I'm sorry?
employee raises? Can I go back to that?
Absolutely.
Can you scroll back to that page, please?
Do you want me to go back to this one?
One more.
Okay.
I'm looking at my supplement sheet, okay.
Okay.
Does this, we say all, does it include part-time?
Yeah, so when we give part-time raises, that's generally for our year-round part-timers.
Right, that's what I mean, year-round.
And as far as I'm aware, those pays are aligned with the full-time equivalent, so they should also get that pay raise, yes.
That's all, I just want to make sure the part-time's included.
And we've really gone over the last several years to where we can take a part-time position and make that a full-time position, because we were having trouble. Am I right on that?
Yes, we've done that in parks a couple of times with like groundskeepers positions where we've said, you know, that we're paying the same hourly rate, but instead of having, say, 10 groundskeepers, we'll bring in 3 or 4 full-time, 10 part-time groundskeepers, change that to 3 or 4 full-time to actually get that staff, and that's been more successful, I think, at parks. And I think we've done that for a couple of other positions over there as well. Nate's nodding, so.
And because the, when I was growing up, we would call them patrol mothers, but patrol people at
School patrol, mhm.
Yes. Their income is coming from the police's budget, right?
Right, they're in the
So
part-time.
Would they also be included in this raise?
We can make sure that they are. I don't know that they were specifically included. I'm not sure how that falls on the full, compared to the full-time pay plan, but we can also say a 2.5% or pay raise and 1.5% COLA on those as well.
Right, because I believe we did miss it last time. Because
Okay.
several of them told me they did not get a raise.
Okay, well, we'll correct that this year then.
Thank you.
Were there any other questions on payroll before I move forward?
I've got something at the end, but I'll,
Okay.
at the end on that.
Okay, so looking at our non-personnel supplementals, those are the priority 1 to 3 items on your sheet. These total to around 1.4 million, or about 18% of the budgeted supplementals. Half of these are for technology upgrades, which this is a trend we're seeing year over year as we all become more dependent on technology, and it plays such a big role in how we do business. We're also seeing a few heavy equipment needs for street and fleet services. And then with the opening of the new transit facility anticipated midway through the year, we've budgeted to hire a security service out there. This will be 75% grant funded. So of the $229,000 listed on your supplemental sheet, general fund would only really be responsible for $57,000 of that. Priority 4 supplementals are for non-general fund items. So airport has about 1.8 million in requests this year, including T-hanger pavement repairs and preliminary work for the traffic control tower. These are expected to be 95% federal and state grant funded. So airport would be responsible for about 75,000 of those costs. And also police is budgeting to purchase vehicle and firearm replacements out of the drug fund balance this year as well. So as we've had the last few years, we have several projects that'll carry over from this year's budget to next year's budget, totaling about 9.3 million. These have already been or will be pulled out of unassigned fund balance at year end so that we're matching revenues and expenses each year. Are there any questions about any of these items listed? Okay, so our next steps will include a public hearing and first reading of the budget and tax rate ordinances on June 6th, with second reading scheduled at the June 13th workshop meeting, where we'll also have the water, stormwater, schools, and community investment trust resolutions for your approval. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I got a couple. Is Chief Bowen? He's here somewhere, isn't he? There he is. He's hiding in the back. He's back there with all the troublemakers. I'm looking at you, Raymond. Hey, so Chief, this is not a surprise to Chief, because when I went through my budget meeting, you know, Aaron knew exactly where this was going, because I've asked the same question over the last 2 or 3 years. But you know, right now I think we're at 100 and what's our overall fund balance that we're going to end up with at the end of this year?
I'm projecting around 128 to 130 million.
So over the last 10 years, that number's gone from 30 million up to 130 million, and a lot of that is y'all's hard work. But you know, every year we budget to hire police officers, and over the last 4 or 5 years, just because of what's not only happening regionally but nationally, our fund balance keeps growing. But part of that is where we've budgeted to hire people and we've not hired those people. So it's great that our fund balance is growing, but the negative with that is it's growing because we didn't hit a goal that we accomplished. And I don't think that's any fault of Chief and his team. I mean, we've got a full-time recruiter now, really having to look, you know, more and more on trying to be innovative in hiring public safety officers. But Chief, how many, at the end of this fiscal year, how many officers do you feel like, based on what we had budgeted, that will be down?
Right now, we're at 23.
Okay.
But we do have a class starting in July, and we have another one in August. So if we can pick up around 17, then that'd help a lot. It gets below that 10 mark. The big challenge for us, and I tried to, if you look at some past budget years, when we're so short, I try to be realistic and not budget for any new positions. No, we can't even fill the spots we have. We're kind of in a position right now that we're just with some of the recent raises, some of the momentum, that we're able to fill some spots. I know that working with Darren, he asked for some projections for personnel for 10 years out, and when I look at that number, that's the concerning part for me. Is yeah, we're gaining ground now, but we also have the not all agencies are faced with the growth of the city that we have. Right. And the challenge for us is when you look out to FY34, we're looking at about 150 new officers. So that's a challenge for us to maintain that retention and meet the growth needs, and that's where the challenge is for us. I'm kind of confident with where some of our recruiting efforts have taken us, and that's why I asked for those positions this year, because I got to set the goal, because we can't get much further behind.
Right. So you know, we all have to try to keep up with our numbers based on population, but as we went through our budget discussion, you know, one of the things that when I left, I called and talked to Mr. Tyndall and then Chief Bowen about, and I say this to all these department heads and our team who are sitting out here, you know, very rarely do we make decisions and we say, okay, what's Franklin doing? You know, okay, well, I know we're thinking about doing this, but what's Nashville doing? But we do that, it seems like, when it comes to looking at comparable agencies on what they pay. So I really challenge Chief Bowen to say, come back with a plan that you think gets us where we need to, that's good for Murfreesboro. And who cares what some of these other organizations are doing? Now, granted, THP starting salary at $68,000 Franklin starting their starting salary at 64,000, doing shift differential and a lot of things they're doing.
Right.
You know, it is an arms race. I had Aaron pull back up over the last 6 years. We've raised overall public safety, police and fire, 32% over the last 6 years. And I think I would say it's hard if you find municipalities that have raised their public safety pay that much over a 6-year period. But Chief came back with a pretty aggressive plan to try to get us to where we can match and have a plan that's good for Murfreesboro. And Aaron, do you want to maybe go over, so my first thing is to talk about police, my second thing is to talk about fire. So do you want to
Sure.
go over what you think that looks like?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything for the screen for you, but talking with Chief Bowen and looking at the plan, what we've looked at doing is keeping it at a 14-step plan, which is what we're at currently, but raising the starting pay from about 56.5 to 62.5. So that would be an overall increase and it would trickle down that, you know, because the pays are all built on each other. When you get to sergeant, it's built at a certain step on a police officer and all of that. So starting that pay at 62.5 would be about a 10.7% increase overall to the police employees. Now, that is including the 4% that's already budgeted. So it wouldn't be 4 plus 10, it would be 4 plus 6.65% or whatever that percentage is to get it to that. The cost of that, if we wanted to go that route, would be an additional 2.1 to 2.2 million to the city's budget. I will say that we've been conservative. We do budget an allowance for vacancies each year, and we've done that since before I came to the city. And last year, I think, was our most aggressive year with that allowance, and I've raised it again this year for the budget. But, you know, when you raise the pay, you should probably raise that allowance too, because it's, you know, you're really thinking about the number of people that you're going to be able to bring in. And if it's a higher pay that you're budgeting, then you can budget a higher allowance if you're going to have that slippage through the year.
The one thing, though, that we do have to take into account, we're budgeting for 15 new positions on top of the 23 that we haven't filled yet. But when we budget those 15 new positions, we're budgeting them as if they were going to start July 1.
Right.
And so the 15 new positions that we've got budgeted to start July 1, there is no chance in all possibility that we'll hire any of those people starting July 1. More likely, it's probably going to be mid-year. So we're already over budgeting 6 months on the 15 people that we've already hired. I think that's smart to do it that way. But, you know, whatever that number is, the likelihood that we're even going to use half of that is not going to happen. So we're really not talking about.
And it is part of the reason why I increased the allowance was in response to that added 15 on the head count. I think we have room to add more to that allowance. You know, right now it's at about 5.8%. I think we could go to an 8% allowance based on what our history has been and still be under what our actual savings have been historically. And I say this every year when we talk about it. You know what I'm going to say? If we get really successful and get full staffed, we may have to come back for a budget amendment to increase that payroll budget.
Can I ask you one question on that?
Good. It's never.
Has that ever happened?
I know.
So this is like the same conversation
I know,
we have
he
at
just loves
these, and I'm
hearing it
like,
from
okay,
me.
so there's not many things I can guarantee that I think the council agrees, would 100% agree on, but I think if Aaron came to us and said, hey, council, we've been really successful and we've hired all of our police officers and Chief Bowen's recommended that we need funding to fund the other portion, I think every one of us would say,
Sign up.
high five, yeah, we'll do that, but we've never been able to do that.
It's
So,
just my disclaimer.
I
You know,
know.
it's
You're
my
like-
annual
You're
disclaimer.
like a politician.
You're
putting-
required to make that disclaimer.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
So, Chief, do you think that this puts us in a better position?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you have to just look at some of the cities, and of course THP, that they make a pretty significant salary. Metro makes a pretty significant salary, and I mean those numbers would be unrealistic to do in one budget year. But I think that puts us in a pretty good position, especially with our target being laterals. I think that would be a large enough number maybe to get some of those laterals instead of a lot of what you see now is you'll have people apply for several agencies and they basically take the first offer they get, whether it be any of our neighboring cities. So I think that kind of money difference would probably make some people hold on and say, hey, we're going to wait out Murfreesboro till we get our offer. Like I said, it's not at the level of THP, it's not at Metro's level, but it's definitely respectable and puts us in a different tier.
Aaron, what's the overall budget impact?
Well,
I know it's 2.2, but overall, there's not really,
we can balance the budget by increasing that allowance for vacancies and using that 1.1 million that I talked about at the very beginning, that we had more in operating revenues than operating expenses.
the
So
council just needs to be aware that if it did get to, I mean, not really this year, but maybe next year, that if it did get to where we're as successful as we hope to be, that there would be an opportunity that we would have to say, look, we have not spent into fund balance in 7 or 8 years. We used to routinely do deficit budgeting into fund balance. But the money that we have in fund balance right now is money that we budgeted to hire people that we didn't hire people. So there may be a point that we have to come and say, we're okay with spending some of that past money into our budget. I mean, we've had years of doing really well on saving, and there's a reason why that's happened. So that would be, after listening to a lot of people who know how to run police departments, that seems like that's a discussion worth us having as a supplemental to the budget.
When you increase starting salaries, particularly this significant, what does that do to the rest of the pay scales for everyone else in the department?
it will trickle down to that, with that same percentage.
Trickle up.
Trickle up.
Yeah, you're right, trickle up to that same percentage. On my spreadsheet, it's going down, so.
So that effect is the 2.2?
Right.
The
In
entire-
addition to what was already budgeted with that 4%. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The entire salary for piece for the police department is in that 2.2?
That additional 6.7% roughly would equate to 2.2 on our
Okay.
budget.
All right.
So, Mayor, we noticed a nationwide trend when it comes to the police department. What about a larger bonus scale? I don't know what kind of bonus. Chief, what kind of bonus are we throwing out there now?
So basically, we have adopted the state's retention bonus plan, and of course, they put a cap on it of like $40,000. So they're not meeting what we do. So we have supplemented that in our budget, and I forget the figure this year, but I know we've supplemented that. So we are signed on to the whole recruiting and retention bonus with the state, and we are paying out that bonus, and for the foreseeable future, plan on doing so.
What's that number? You know what that number is?
I did not bring that number.
$5,000 signing bonus, or is it more than that?
No, it's broken down. It's broken down into segments. Like a lateral officer might get several hundred the first 6 months, then they might get 1,000. And I didn't bring that number with me, but I can get that to you. But it's broken down in increments based on experience or non-experience. So.
Okay, because I think I saw something on the news where they had said they did a $20,000 sign-on bonus.
No, it's not. It's not to that level. It's
But
not.
I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Where they say $20,000 signing bonus, but yet you had to stay 4 to 5 years. I mean, I think we're going to have to get something to attract people to come, not just throwing salary at them, but we're going to have to give them something to attract people to come here as well.
I think getting it to this level is going to help significantly, but the other thing that we did talk about is, I asked this question with Randolph, that right now, we allow lateral moves to be able to come in at I think a 4-step or 5-step.
I think it's a 6. It's right one step below the halfway mark.
So one of the things that we talked about is if you've got an officer with, say, 15 years experience that's moving in, and, sometimes it's not feasible for them with 15 years of experience to come in at a step 6. So giving the chief, this ability is already there, but if there's a qualified officer, and I think this is for police and for fire, giving the ability that the chiefs can make a recommendation to the city manager where they can override that 6-step or that midpoint step and say, hey, this is a very qualified candidate that wants to move to Murfreesboro for the quality of life we have, but they can't take this big of a hit coming from their department, their record's clean, then we should give them the opportunity to bring that person into the department.
Right. And I think there's latitude in the policy right now for me to coordinate with the HR director and to get city manager approval for those types of adjustments. So the mechanism's there for us to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, because right now in the fire and the police department, we train them and they move on with the expert training. So really what we're doing is just fattening frogs for snakes.
I like that. That's good.
Right. And just going back to the Councilman Wade on the bonuses, I know we've been paying those. I've signed off on it, so they're starting to take effect now. And I think we projected out, I know in maybe next year, our part of it's going to be around $230,000. So it's a significant portion that the city's paying for those bonuses. But it seems to be going well right now. So.
Well, we've all got information about, as I said, not to look at other municipalities, but when, news stories run and someone looks at, we're one of the larger police departments in the state. And, as other people do things, you do have to look at the size of the department. But as far as public safety, specifically police, I think we can't get behind on hiring people. So I think this goes a long way to being able to help that. And again, I hate to harp on this, but we're using money that we've saved by where we weren't successful in bringing people on. Mm-hmm. So we talk about slippage every year, and my thing was that we need to do something for the money that we as a council for the last 10 years have budgeted to hire, and we've not done that. So we need to get it to where we use that money. So the second thing I had is moving more to fire. Thank you, Chief.
Sir, thank you.
And had talked to Chief McCluskey that, our opportunity in hiring people is there right now, Chief, but we're losing people. Chief, it's year 3 to 7 is where we're using people. Is that right?
What was that now?
We're losing people to other departments years 3 to 7.
Yes, I got some numbers on that. I had run, it's kind of, in the last 5 years, we've lost 124 recruits, 88 of them only having 3 years experience with the city and moving on. Back in 2019, we would have over 300 people to sign up for a job to go through our PAT test, physical ability test. We held one last week and had 38 people to show up at it. Typically, out of these PAT classes, it's been running where the list will get cut down to about half. So that's going to leave us about 15, 20 folks out of these 38 to even hire from. 2 of them were only laterals from other departments. So our hiring pool has gone way down, and we're not getting the people in here that want to apply for Murfreesboro.
So would you feel comfortable, Chief, that maybe over the next couple of months, 3 months, to be able to come up with a overall that year 3 to 7, or maybe a plan that you could show us where we think we could help alleviate that 155 people who are leaving predominantly to go to Nashville? But yes. Is there something that we're not having necessarily trouble hiring and filling the positions?
Well, we're starting to now.
Well, but we're not at this, we haven't over the last couple of years. Well, I'm comparing that to police.
Yes.
Where we don't have 38 people.
No.
open?
Well, actually, we graduated, 1st of May, we graduated 8 for this year, but we've had 9 to resign since that class. So we're already back down again.
Can I add to
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Chief, you and I had a conversation on this same topic about maybe looking at the possibility of a 24/72 or a lower tour of duty or something as kind of a retention capability, where other departments may have the pension, other departments may have higher pay, but give our department one of those linchpin things that a firefighter can look at and go, well, that's something Murfreesboro does that other people don't do. When you're studying what the mayor's talking about, can you look at those two options as well?
I can.
Thank you.
Well,
So basically like non-salary incentives?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so other perks that aren't necessarily tied to the money part.
I like that.
yeah, there's some, I think the county fire department here, they work a 48-hour shift off, and they're off for 96, or work 48 and off 96. It's just a different schedule. Some departments work 24 on, then off 72. So there's different ways that makes it attractive to people coming here.
Yeah.
I just don't want to get in, I mean, and the reason that Ash Chief and his team, I'm reluctant to get into these salary studies again and market comparisons. And the issue, and I think Randolph will tell you this, just as much as we're trying to do what's right for Murfreesboro, other municipalities are trying to do what's right for them, and no one will share their information on what they may or may not do. You know, and I mean, rightfully so. I mean, we're trying to do what's best for our community, and when you call Mount Juliet or someone else to say, hey, what do y'all think, what we all may do this year, they're like, I don't know, what are you gonna do? You know, you tell me
It's
first,
an
I'll
arms
tell
race.
you. You
It's
know,
an arms
so-
You tell me yours, I'll tell
So,
you.
I've talked to some other chiefs, and they're the same way too. You think
Yeah.
they're buddies, but they won't share that information with you.
so we know that police and fire are different jobs.
Correct.
And we know that there are opportunities with the fire department that the police department doesn't have. We need to find a way that we can grow our force, not only numbers, but age-wise with people who are staying. Because, and this is a number Randolph gave me, again, that if typically we can get people to stay through year 7 to 9, they're typically not going to leave. They're going to stay here. So we need to find ways to get to that 7 to 9 quicker, knowing that we're going to hear words like compression, we're going to hear words like topped out, and that is something the council needs to know, that as we look at these things and these changes we make, when people get topped out, they're topped out. And so the only thing you can do is a COLA increase, but you can't have, I want to get topped out as quick as I can, and then complain when you get topped out.
Right.
So we can't have it both ways. But I do think that, Chief, I tell you the same thing I told you when we were talking about this the other night, that it would be great for Murfreesboro to come up with something that works for Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
And then everybody else can look and say, good, did you see what Murfreesboro did? So,
I'll work on it.
Thank you,
thank you,
sir.
Chief.
Those are excellent points, Mayor.
Thank you.
You brought up excellent. Me personally, I don't put any trust in employee salary surveys. I don't. I mean, because they always come back like people want them to come back
We've
and
been
not
there,
the
done
truth.
that. Yeah.
You know, me personally. But,
Hey, don't think that I still have, that. I don't even want to say it out loud. I still remember the salary study that we did 15 years ago, that, yeah, I'm not, it's still burned in my memory that.
oh, yeah.
Don't talk about it.
And also, before I leave the council, which this won't happen, but I would love to see, and I have always felt like fire and police should have been pulled out separately, just by the nature of what they do. But I would like to see in this city that all departments, when they are doing a great job, have some kind of financial incentive to where, and I know it, you know, you're looking at performance pay, but I don't want to put it in that category, but it's kind of the same, that like all departments, like, I just looked at Raymond. No, not that you said anything to me. I just saw you raise your hand like that. But like, I mean, just doing your eyebrows. But like somebody in his department or department head is doing something exceptional, I would like to see some kind of incentive for that. But anyway, we'll go on, because
He was really just raising his hand for a question.
But anyway, I won't see it in my term, but I would love to see Murfreesboro do that for all employees.
So we've talked about police, we've talked about fire. I do think, Madeline, what you're talking about, you know, we do have a new city manager coming in, and I think being creative on rewarding employees is absolutely something. No, see Darren, so, the other thing that I had, and I think as the city grows, we've transitioned. I met with Judge Sellers a couple of weeks ago, I think, met with Judge, but I think it's time for the council, and really as a recommendation from administration, that we look at a full-time position with a judge. We can go into all the financial reasons why. I mean, Aaron, if based on the numbers that we've talked about, do you see a large budget ramification for having that full-time position?
No.
But, you know, the things that the staff has talked about is being able, at some point, you know, right now we have Tuesdays and Thursday court. If there's the opportunity to expand that where police officers don't have to come in on their days off, I think there's ways that we can look that expanding that, the court handling internal hearings. We have a really tough time filling the disciplinary review board. And I think there's opportunities where this could be beneficial. And I told Judge Sellers, if the council agrees that this is a full-time position, please apply for the position. But, you know, I think the city size that we have, and I don't want to tell Judge he's part-time because I'm sure he works more than a part-time employee, but I think it's time that we look at transitioning that department into growing it as the city has grown. So that's the other recommendation that I think Aaron talked about. And there's plenty of time to think about this and then talk about it when we get to first reading, so I'm not asking anyone to make a decision today.
Right, so any of the changes that council wants after the public hearing, y'all can consider those changes or make motions for those changes to be made with first reading. And if anything else comes up between first and second reading, we can also tack those on before second reading.
Do y'all have any more questions, or do y'all want to go to Murfreesboro City Schools so we can really?
I just wanted to tell the staff, the entire staff, that thank you for everything you do. You do an excellent job. That's why our city looks so good. I mean, the job you all come in and do every day. So we as a council, we really appreciate everything you do. We may not see you until the Christmas dinner or whatnot, but the departments are running very smooth, and we just want to thank you for the excellent job you do.
Absolutely.
Hey, Aaron, can I ask a question?
Sure.
On the supplemental report, I see the Lucas device warranties.
Yes.
That's just for the warranty service. Did we get 12 of them covered by ARPA funds?
That's my understanding, was that we had ARPA funds to cover the device, but the ARPA funds would not cover the actual warranties. So we were paying for that out of general fund.
Okay, but the ARPA paid for all 12 of them?
That's correct, right?
Is that one for every rig at this point? Because we already had 4, right?
No, we'll put one on every.
Sorry, Chief.
That's okay. That'll put one out on all of our frontline piece of equipment and have one spare in case needed.
Okay, so that's 17 total. We had 4 already, right?
4, yes, that's 16 total.
16. So, wow, 12 plus 4 is 16. News alert. Thank you, Chief.
That's all of our heavy equipment, fire trucks, and also we'll have one on our paramedic safety 2 car and a spare.
Okay, thank you. That's great. That's exciting. Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, let's move to Murfreesboro City Schools. All right, thank you, Trey. We'll move to Water Resources.
Works for me.
Hey, it makes me look out there and see everyone who's here. Who's running the city right now?
That's right.
Every department head here.
It's like that, you know, when the State of the Union address is happening, they send the next leaders. Yeah, designated survivors, yeah.
Well, good afternoon. I will
proud to present an overview of our budget for the next year. Thank you to Mr. Shacklett. He's our liaison, and he has sat through 8 hours of these meetings already in total, so I'm sure he's thrilled to hear it. Again, I promise not to be that long-winded, but definitely want to give you the information you need. In front of you, you have our 5-year strategic plan. Of course, everything we have in our budget aligns to that. It's something we're really proud of. We just updated that plan, and we, again, feel confident that our budget aligns to those major goals that we have. Speaking of those goals, very quickly, again, it's outcomes for students. That's what we're about, taking care of our employees, and then making sure we're set up strong for the future with our fund balance. A lot of stakeholder engagement went into this, from our principals and our department heads to our parents. All of those people came in and provided input on this budget. And we worked through our board members for, like I said, 8 hours worth of work sessions to get to where we are today. And of course, the big one of making sure we're aligned to our 5-year strategic plan. We really have 3 major priorities that we looked at this year. Over the last few years, we've made a significant investment in behavioral supports, and the feedback we got from our stakeholders overwhelmingly was we need to keep those behavioral supports in place. ESSER funds, which is our version of ARPA funds at the school level, those of course are going away. We had a few positions that were still funded through those ESSER funds. We wanted to transfer those to GP so we didn't lose services. And then cost of living adjustments for our teachers, specifically in years 16 through 25, and I'll speak on that in just a moment. Just to give you a snapshot as far as enrollment is looking for next year, we are projecting to be around 9,700 students. We're seeing about 9,500 right now. We projected last year that we would have about a 2.5% growth. We're actually sitting at like 2.1%, so a little less than what we thought. Kindergarten class was smaller than we had anticipated. I will say our kindergarten numbers for next year are already looking very strong as that registration process is going through. So that's what we're looking at, just shy of 10,000 students. But we're growing over our reporting periods, about 32 students per reporting period. So it's about a class and a half every reporting period. I want to share this data with you as well, just so you know how we built our budget. This is our weighted average of students. This is a collection of every K-12 student in all of Rutherford County, regardless of school system, either in the county or in Murfreesboro City Schools. You can see this year we're serving 14.53% of all students. That is up from last year. That's important because that determines the amount of sales tax and property tax we receive from the county. That is recalculated every year. You can see we've been consistent around that 14%. And so obviously everyone's seeing growth, and we picked up a larger percentage of students this year. So with those growth, with that increase in students, we're projecting the need of about 18 new certified positions. Those are licensed educators. 7 of those are classroom teachers. You'll see some new special education classrooms. That's a growing population for us. We're actually adding new special education classrooms. ESL teachers, 3 of those will end up with a total of 43. We've added 3 ESL teachers during this school year. This will be 3 additional ones. And you'll see some additional assistant principals and academic interventionists. Those are for our largest schools. We now have 3 elementary schools that are at or above 1,000 students, and so the additional supports it takes to run a school that large. Of course, with certified, also some additional classified staff to help support those needs as well. So obviously, salary adjustments is the majority of our budget. About 88% of our budget is teacher pay and employee pay. Let me rephrase that. So the last few years, we've given pretty, with our cost of living raises, I would say conservative cost of living raise adjustments compared to what other school systems and other government entities were giving over the last few years. Last year as well, we did totally redo our administrative pay scale and added some longevity steps as well. This year, as we looked at coming forward, we wanted to make sure we remained competitive, specifically in years 16 through 25. As I said, we were very conservative the last few years with our pay raises, and that meant where we were very competitive all across the board, we lost some of that competitiveness in our upper years. So we wanted to look carefully at that. Also look carefully at bus drivers and school nurses, where again, we could be more competitive. So overall, for our cost of living adjustments, it was a base 3% to the teacher salary scale. And then we actually put additional funds in years 16 through 25, so that on average, our teachers will see a 5.1% increase with their step increase. Our starting teacher salary will go to $50,000. For every employee not on the teacher pay scale, they will get a 4% cost of living raise. We have new salary scales for our school bus drivers, our school nurses, and our school social workers, and we'll continue with our differentiated pay plan for hard-to-staff positions. So a few highlights for our revenues, and I'll get to the fun stuff. Increase in our state TISA funds. This is money straight from the State Department. It's our largest funding source. We'll see about a 6.3% increase there, about $3.7 million. That has to do with increase in enrollment and increase in our special populations of students. I will say we are budgeting our local property tax at maintenance of effort with no increase for FY23. And this is, I think, important for us to know, we have not budgeted in the school system budget any additional property tax money in 4 years. And I think that's really important to know. That was at one point our second highest revenue stream. Now it's our third because we're not doing that. We've had conversations in the past about some of the property tax pennies being moved away from education. This is really about that impact that it's having on us. So I just think that's important for us to know. We are increasing our local county sales tax revenue, but we always, and we'll talk about this in expenditures in a minute, we always budget our sales tax extremely conservative because we know that can be variable. And of course, when we talk about maintenance of effort, anything we budget from the local, we have to continue to budget. And we can't decrease that amount, so we always keep that very conservative. So overall, we're looking about a 5.2% total increase in our revenues for next year. All of that is found in our state of Tennessee allocation and some adjustments to our sales tax. On the expenditure side, again, all of our expenditures really go to those cost of living adjustments that we talked about, which is between a 3 and 4% range. Additional growth positions that go with our total population, as well as increases in English language learners and students with disabilities, those transfer of federally funded positions, and continuing the funding for our mental health supports. So we are looking at an increase in expenditures of about 5.6% from this year. So you can see a comparison here. If you look at the bolded line at the bottom, 24-25, we have about $107 million in revenues with about 112 in expenditures, which means we are going into our fund balance about $4.7 million. I know sometimes that makes people a little nervous, but again, we budget extremely conservative on the revenue side so that we don't obligate our local government for money if there is a dip in sales tax or property tax. So I give that to comparison. You can go back to 2018. We have budgeted in the deficit every year to help keep those numbers conservative. And as you can see, we have actually added to fund balance every year. So this year, the current fiscal year, about that same amount, about $4 million into fund balance. And right now we're projecting almost $1.8 million in the plaque. So we feel good about that. You can see our current fund balance. Unassigned is about $19 million. Assigned is right at total fund balance is about 24.4. And that is our general purpose budget. So I'm going to stop there. I have 3 other small budgets I need to talk about, but I'll take any questions on that if there are any. Okay, I will move on. Our federal funds, which are money we get directly from the federal government, is very consistent with last year. These are highly restrictive funds that can only be used for very specific purposes. Those purposes have not changed in our FY25 budget from FY24. Total federal allocation of about $4.4 million. Our ESP budget, which we're extremely proud of to offer before and after care from 6 to 6 every day. You will see actually a decrease in revenues here. That has to do with some COVID dollars that have gone away and a decrease in expenditures as well. So we're looking at about $6 million in expenditures. Once again, going a little bit into fund balance there, but I've put for reference at the bottom, we almost doubled our fund balance last year in ESP, so we feel very comfortable with that number.
Hey, Trey.
Yes.
Sorry. Where all do the revenues come from for ESP? Is that the parents' pay?
It's a combination. So it's tuition payments, it's Department of Human Services grants. The majority of our students in many of our schools, especially in our Title I schools, go at a discounted rate. So they may go for $1 a day, $2 a day. Many of them are free, and so they are reimbursed with the Department of Human Services. So that's a big portion of that as well.
What's the full tuition for the ESP program?
I will have to grab that number for you, Ms. Averwater. I don't have it off the top of my head right now.
Thank you, Dr. Duke.
I will say we do a comparison monthly or every year, and even next year, I will say with all of our surrounding districts, we still have the least expensive ESP program of any of our surrounding districts, but I'll send you that exact number.
And from my experience and from what my friends share, it's the best. So
Yeah, it's great.
I commend you guys for a great program.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job. And then finally, our school nutrition budget, which is a separate budget, also funded from federal funds. You can see here we're looking about a $6.4 million in revenues. This again comes from the National School Lunch Program and Department of Human Services, about a 21% increase there. And about 8.7 in expenditures. Here, we again are dipping significantly into fund balance, and that's very intentional. We are really only in school nutrition supposed to keep a fund balance of about 3 months worth of expenses, which is about $1.7 million. As you can see, we're sitting over $7 million in that. Our school nutrition manager has done a great job managing those funds, and we've gotten significant COVID money, much of which y'all have approved when I come with money all the time. For you guys to approve, and so we are trying very hard to spend that money down. So if you've been in any of our schools lately, you'll see new cafeteria designs and a lot of great stuff going on there. So with that, I will stop and see if there's any questions, but we're excited, like I said, about $112 million budget in our GP for next year.
I have a question. Bill, I think the last time you came to us, you mentioned that you're going to the free lunch program this year?
Yes, ma'am.
So every child in the city's Murfreesboro schools will get free lunch?
Free breakfast and free lunch. They started receiving that in January of this year, and it'll be all of next year as well.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, I've got a couple. There's been an issue the past couple of years with the way the county calculates population and how it affects our budget. Is there any close to getting a resolution on that?
We continue to have conversations about making sure they understand the impact it has on us. I mean, ultimately, we don't have much recourse if they decide to move money, except to make sure that they're aware of it. I will say, 2 years ago, they moved 7 pennies. Last year, 10 pennies off. Aaron may have more information about what their intentions are this year, which is why we budgeted so conservatively. It does help us that we've picked up a higher percentage of students, so that works for us. But we've tried to be very transparent as the impact it's having on us. And I will say, I don't want to speak for the county school system, but they do not have as much wiggle room maybe to do that as they did 2 years ago.
Were you asking about that or about the ADA calculation?
No, about that.
About that, okay.
I think this
And
year,
I was told that there was going to be probably a smaller amount taken again this year from that property tax allocation, but I'm not sure what that number is yet.
the issue with that movement is, once it gets to a certain point, it starts hurting. It's hurt the Murfreesboro City school system probably more than the county to this point. I think this year it was $3 million is what we took a hit. But once you start moving that rate much more, it adversely hurts Rutherford County because you start getting to below maintenance of effort or near maintenance of effort.
And it definitely is, again, it's why when you think about how much we have grown in this county and we haven't budgeted any new property tax revenue in 4 years, that kind to me speaks the impact it's having overall on us.
Thank you.
They have to make up for the maintenance of effort if they do that, but it's what Dr. Duke said, it's the growth that isn't getting any revenues.
And even with our sales tax that we're projecting, like I said, last year, we didn't budget any new sales tax revenue. And so we budgeted last year $14.3 million. And like I said, we'll bring in, I think, almost 18 this year or 17. So what we have budgeted for next year for sales tax, even with our increase, is still significantly below what we're going to bring in this year. So just keeping that. Again, it hurts us a little bit because then we can't spend that money. It makes us dip into fund balance. But as that graph showed, we have a good history of adding to fund balance instead of taking from it.
Thank you.
Let me just make a comment about having watched this process for 8 hours. That is just a little bit, that's the Reader's Digest version of what goes on. Dr. Duke's team and the board are just amazing. The amount of contribution that they all put into making this budget a living document that truly reflects what we're doing in our schools and our community. Every dollar is looked at, every expenditure, every revenue, and they need to be commended for the work that you do, your team and the board as well, because they truly engage. The board is engaged in this process. It's not just them presenting. They reflect their opinions on what is best for the system, and it is. It's worthy to watch. I don't contribute and say a whole lot unless I'm asked, but it was. They need to be commended for the work that they do to put this budget together. It's truly to be commended for a great job and the work that they do every year.
Thank you very much.
So council, with that, we all need to be prepared that this 24-25 year will be a year to talk about growth options.
Yes.
So I know, Dr. Duke, we've talked about this quite a bit, but whether that is expansions on existing schools, if that's going to be a new school, but that will have to be a discussion this year that we take up along with that growth discussion with the school board. So it's not in our budget this year, but we need to be prepared. That discussion is looming. Is that fair?
Very fair.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move to water resources. Mr. Gore.
Mayor and council, thank you for the opportunity to present the FY25 draft budget for Murfreesboro Water Resources. I'm going to go through a little sand key diagram real quickly so you can kind of see how the budget comes together.
Hey, Darren, will you pull your microphone over?
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? My bad. We're looking at around $18.1 million in our water operating revenue, 40,000 repurified, 34.5 million in sewer operating revenue, other income, and about 3.22 million. That gives us around 55.88 million in operating revenue. Looking at expenses, you can kind of see their water is around 10.5, sewer is around 12, customer billing and collection around 3 million, admin and general expenses about 8.3 million. We also have about 7.7 million in debt service and about 8.8 million in capital expenditures that is rate funded. We do have a portion of our rate revenue that does go to future capital expenditures and some sinking funds, and we also have some restricted interest income reserves that goes to a reserve expense. We have our growth revenues, which is basically our TAP revenue, if you will, capacity impact fees at around 6.4 million. 400,000 of that does go back into the operating budget, and the other goes into our special assessments, water taps, sewer taps, and those all that reserve balance, that's kind of our capacity improvement expenses. So we do have a $13 million transfer to our reserves from growth revenue and some operating revenue. That does put us at a balanced budget of around $63,480,000. I can go through the expenses real quick. Compared to last year, you can kind of see our total operating expenditures went up about 6.6%. Our total expenditures went up 6.3%, even though we had some debt service drop off. But again, our transfers to reserves went up substantially, and that's a good thing. That gives us more money for those capacity improvements using cash. On our personnel, we're just talking about 2 new employees, one at operation and maintenance and one at engineering. So a pretty nominal increase on headcount. And that's really it for the water resources side of things. I didn't want to go into too much detail. I can stop there before I get into stormwater or if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Okay. Keep going here on stormwater. So we do have about 3.86 million in stormwater revenue anticipated. That's 3.5 million in fees and about 360,000 in interest earnings. From a budgeted expenses, we are looking at about, our largest expense is general fund services, where we reimburse the city for stormwater related activities. We do have some salaries and benefits for the stormwater fund that funds personnel at the water department. Operating expenses at 658,000, some rate funded capital assets at 482,000. A lot of that goes to our streets department that works in this storm sewer, I guess, operation and maintenance activities. And we do have a 200,000 repair and rehab allowance. One thing on the, this is our 5-year CIP, and I'm just going to kind of, I know that's a lot, but just if you look at the 6.3 million is the total, that's a 5-year total, and we're looking at spending 2.74 million in FY25 and 1.95 in FY26. The trick here is that we only have 3.6 million in reserves. So you can see that we do not have enough in reserves to pay for that full CIP, 5-year CIP using cash. That kind of leads me to this slide. This is the reserve balance, basically starting from FY08 on the stormwater fund. This is that 3.6 million in FY24 that's projected. You can kind of see that 3.6 million, if I can do this properly, we've hovered around, 3.5 to 4 million over the last 6 or 7 years, in that range. Our 12 months of operating expenses is 3.1 million. That's a financial policy that we've actually changed that policy several years ago that said we needed to stay above 3 months of operating expenses, which is 800,000. You can kind of see, though, if we actually do spend that 2.74 million this year, that puts us right above the threshold of our 3-month operating expense financial policy, that we have to stay above that. And if we spend the 1.95, then you can see that we actually go into a deficit. So I'm just bringing this up because the point of all this is the fact that our reserve balance is capital project driven. And sometimes we project say a $2.74 million capital project expense. We may not construct those projects. So we do have control. This is not an operating expense, so we do have control of our CIP. But if we do end up spending those projects or spending the money on those capital projects, it would set up a potential stormwater fee increase next year. That's really what I'm driving at here, is that if we don't have enough cash to pay for everything, and one of our policies is that we do not incur debt for the stormwater fee. So the stormwater fee is supposed to pay for capital projects using reserve money or cash. So real quick on accomplishments for this year, we did get the full-scale biosolids drying operations bid last week. That was a $28 million budgeted project that came out at $33 million. That'll be brought before the council here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We did complete the Overall Creek pump station. Really big deal, especially with this last rain. Worked very, very good. We did not have an overflow at Overall Creek. We finished about 50% on the Salem Barfield Interceptor sewer. We completed our water service line inventory for the lead and copper rule, and completed the design of our wet weather capacity improvements at the wharf. We did, this last rain event, we had our all-time high peak. We went over, I believe, 80 million gallons a day. That is absolutely a phenomenal amount of flow that we got through our plant. And again, we did finish the water and sewer improvements along Salem Highway between Old Fort and Middle Tennessee Boulevard. I know we're all ready for that project to be completed. Really quick on the goals. We're trying to get our new, our 316 Robert Rose admin building remodeled and moved in here, hopefully September, October timeframe. Complete the design of our water resource recovery headworks building recommissioning. Complete the design of our Cherry Lane Phase 2 sewer and repurified water. Also design and bid and award the Thompson Lane pump station. Complete the construction of the sewer force main along Butler Drive. And I believe we're in really good shape to apply and hopefully receive our NPDES expanded permit limits. That is the key that has, or the lock that has to be unlocked in order for us to get to the next plant expansion, which, I think we're on a good path there right now. So that's really it. I know that was kind of fast, but available for questions if you have any.
I may have missed this. Have we ever had a stormwater increase?
We have not. It has been $3.25 per month for a resident since the fund was initiated in 2008.
Okay. All right, any questions on stormwater? All right, are there any other discussions on budget?
I don't have any.
Okay.
Good job, Aaron.
Yeah, y'all have done a great job. All right, well, Adam, do I need to just recess this meeting, or?
No, you would adjourn this meeting, and then you'll start a new meeting at 6, the regular meeting.
I got confused because the agenda said regular meeting, so I wanted to make sure that we were first regular meeting.
Yeah, you would adjourn this meeting.
Seeing no other questions, we'll stand adjourned.